Hey there YouTube! Today I wanted to talk to you about the trend cycle. I've been seeing a lot of videos lately about the trend cycle, and they're all very negative. While I think there are downsides to the trend cycle, I don't think it's all bad, and I don't think we need to entirely get rid of it. If you're not familiar with the trend cycle, just a brief explanation. It's basically just, I'm sure if you follow fashion, you've noticed that certain things will come in and out of trend, and sometimes things will come back. Like there's been this general 20-year rule where every 20 years the same type of styles will come back in. Usually there's just some sort of modern twist on them to make them a little more interesting for a newer audience. How trends kind of work is basically all the major fashion houses or conglomerates like LVMH will get together with Vogue and they'll just kind of decide what's going to be the trends for that season. This is so that Vogue can present the newest trends and seem like they're at the forefront of fashion because that's their whole thing, and also so that the brands can make things that are trendy to be shown in Vogue to get them publicity and to also make them seem on top of stuff. You see how they all work together? It's like a symbiotic relationship. So that's basically what trends are. And I think the main problem people are having with trends recently is microtrends. So the difference between a trend and a microtrend is basically just that, as it sounds, a microtrend is much faster and much more specific, I guess. Overall trends usually last at least a season, if not kind of spanning out into a couple years. For example, things like the checkerboard type pattern have been in for the past, I'd say year or so. Fashion isn't like a things start here and end here. It's a gradual kind of, it rises to popularity and then falls off. So trends in general tend to take place over a longer period of time. Microtrends, it might even be just a month or even a week that something is trendy. The most recent, best example I can think of in terms of microtrends is that green House of Sunny dress that everyone was super into briefly during the summer, and then it very quickly fell off. It was a period of 1 or 2 weeks that everyone was super into it, and then after that no one cared about it anymore. Everyone bought the dress, took their Instagram picture in it, and then it was coming up for sale on Depop by the end of the summer. So I totally see people's problems with microtrends because really it encourages a lot of consumerism and waste. It's oh, this thing is trendy, hot right now, you need to get it right now, and then once it's trendy, get rid of it. It's very much fueled by social media and by, you're seeing everything, everyone posts it on Instagram, you're seeing all the influencers talking about it, so you get it, and then as soon as they stop talking about it, no one cares about it anymore. And it's always like that with one specific item or one specific look. Like an example of more of a whole look is the coconut girl aesthetic, which is very Hawaiian inspired, very tropical. That was popular just during the summer, and then it just was gone. Suddenly, now no one cares about it anymore. And next summer, probably no one will care about it again because it was a microtrend. It was just a brief little blip in the trend cycle. I'm not going to talk about microtrends that much in this video. There are videos, I think, that talked about this better, one being from, I think Tiffany Ferg had a good video on microtrends. Nina Lay had a good video on the trend cycle. I think she did talk about microtrends there. But basically, microtrends, I do agree, are bad because it really is just you buy something, you waste your money on buying something that you wear once or twice, and then you get rid of it. It's so pointless to me. It goes so much against how I approach buying things for fashion purposes. It's just, I absolutely hate it. The only exception is if something fits across multiple trends. For example, that House of Sunny dress was actually really nice because it had that kind of groovy graphic print that's really been in this year. It's knitwear, and really interesting knitwear has been really in this year. So I think that dress could have had a longer mainstay as just a general 2021 trendy type of item. It fit a lot of the trends for this year. However, people didn't approach it that way, and I think they really should have because, again, it fit so many trends. It could have been a much longer lasting piece. People could definitely use it multiple ways in their wardrobe, although I guess with a dress, it's harder to remix it a bunch of different ways. People in general tend to hate on the trend cycle, and then so in this video I wanted to give some I guess pros and cons because I think trends are very helpful and I actually think they're really cool. So I wanted to give my perspective on that, just to give a more positive take on what trends are and how they can affect the fashion community. So just to go over some cons of the trend cycle real quick, because I already hit on a couple of them. One is just being consumerism. If you want to be trendy and you don't already have those pieces in your wardrobe, you have to go buy them, or you have to even thrift them. Especially with things right now where it's very referential, a lot of fashion right now is very referential to Y2K in the early 2000s, it's pretty easy to thrift those type of items. But if it's something more updated, or if you really are looking for something with that more current twist on it, then you you just buy it, you know? It's not good that it encourages you to buy new stuff all the time. However, since stuff does come back around, I think you can reuse pieces, so I don't think it's entirely bad to buy new things just to be trendy. Is if you buy something a little more timeless, you can use it in another 10 years when that trend comes around again. Another con, of course, I do think it encourages people to be a little more wasteful. Like I think people, especially on social media, can get kind of obsessed with having their wardrobe, their entire wardrobe just be very current. So they'll go get rid of everything that isn't trendy, only keep and buy stuff that is trendy, and then that cycle just continues once those trends fall out and new ones come in. And then maybe 10 years later, you're thinking like, oh, I got rid of that thing that was trendy and now it's trendy again and I wish I had it. It does kind of encourage that really fast like wardrobe turnover or like hauls, like, you know, buying a ton of stuff at once, and that's not good for the wallet. It's not good for, I think, like your brain, I think, can get a little overloaded with trying to keep up with everything. And just that pressure to remain trendy, I think, can have a negative effect on a lot of people, especially people who can't afford to get hauls and buy a bunch of new stuff every single season. Which is, again, why microtrends are bad. Like, not everyone has money to keep up on trends, but you still want to look fashionable, right? But it's a lot of pressure on social media, especially if you are an influencer or aspiring to be an influencer, or even just young, impressionable teenagers who just want to look cute and trendy. They want to look like the people they follow on Instagram, on TikTok, and it just adds pressure that you really don't need. Like, I don't feel like it was necessarily like as bad as it is when I was a teenager, but there wasn't this whole pressure to embody a certain aesthetic. There was no pressure to keep up with current seasonal trends, really. They were there, but no one really cared or paid attention if you followed them or not. But with everyone's eyes on you on social media, it can be really obvious if you're not trendy or if you're not keeping up. And I think we can all relate to that. Any of us who are on social media in the fashion space or who watch the fashion space a lot, you see people really trying their best to keep up and keep trendy and be on the current season trends, when I don't think that's necessarily a good idea. Like, looking trendy is cute and all, but it shouldn't be your entire thing. That's why I think some of the fashion content creators who other fashion creators like the most and who are the most interesting to the fashion community are the people who aren't necessarily 100% trendy all the time. They're doing their own thing. They have their own very distinct style. And that's always really cool to see, because it's like, oh, you broke out of the trend cycle. Like, you have the confidence and the know-how to have your own style or to use trends in your own way. Let's talk about some of the good things about the trend cycle, because I promise there are good things. Like I mentioned before, because of the roughly 20-year trend cycle, which seems to be getting shorter and shorter, I don't know if it actually is or not, because like I said, what's in right now is Y2K, and that was 20 years ago, so like, I think microtrends are messing with our perception of things a little bit. But because things come back around in the trend cycle, you can re-wear and reuse items that you have in your closet already. For example, I have this blue houndstooth skirt that was probably pretty in when I bought it. I don't know, I bought it when I was in like 6th or 7th grade. You know, it was really cute then. For a while, I just was not into it. It wasn't fitting with anything else in my wardrobe. It wasn't looking very current. But now that that kind of preppy style is back in, that graphic like houndstooth checkerboard type print is back in style, it's really cute again, and now I'm more inspired by it than I have been the last few years it's been sitting in my closet. So it's really nice to see ways that some of your older pieces in your wardrobe can be updated and used in newer looks. Even if it's not the most current, up-to-date take on that trend, I think you can still use it. For example, the checkerboard pattern being back in, you can reuse the plain, like, straight 90-degree angle, like regular checkerboard pattern. You can still wear that stuff right now and look trendy. It's just that the modern interpretation of that checkerboard is to like swirl it around or distort it in some way, which I think is really cool. Like, I was never that into checkerboard before, but with this new iteration, I think it's really cool. So I have one piece. That's all I've bought. That's all I've let myself buy, honestly. You don't need a bunch of pieces when you can take one piece and wear it in a bunch of different ways, I think. Yeah, it is cool to see stuff come back and cool to be able to breathe new life into pieces that have been sitting in the back of your closet for a while. Another thing about the trend cycle, it does encourage experimentation and innovation, because you have these trends from, 20 years ago, and you have to think like, how do I make this look more modern? How do I update this? How can I alter this existing thing to make it better? And that's really what innovation and an improvement on existing things is. That's how we got to smartphones from regular phones, is people would say, what can I do to make this better? What can I do to make this more interesting? What can I do to add more quality of life to this? You know, it's just, that's how things evolve. And I think things coming back around, it kind of encourages designers to iterate on things more and to take a more creative approach to presentation and materials and how they're going about creating and styling this item. Like a really good example of this I saw the other day was, I know those big chunky like acrylic rings are back in again, which like, at first I was like, that's so dumb, but now the more I see them, the more I like them, which is dangerous because that means I might buy one. You know, the ones from the early 2000s were just plain, you know, chunky rings, you know, nothing special going on really. Maybe they would have some sparkles or jewels or something on them. But now we're seeing really interesting takes on them. Like we are seeing more jewels, more embeds in them. What I saw the other day that was really cool was just taking that acrylic ring but creating some really interesting shapes with it. So I think that's a really cool innovation. I do like that trend having come back around. You could thrift those type of rings. You could find them laying in the back of your jewelry box from when you were a kid. You know, you can reuse old items, or you can find these really new interesting ones. And I think that's really cool that it can kind of go both ways, that you can use trends either to look kind of more almost vintagey inspired, like use those older pieces and just integrate them into your current wardrobe, or you can get super modern with it. But another thing that I personally really like about the trend cycle is that it shows you options you didn't know existed, if that makes sense. I'll give you an example. So growing up, low-rise jeans were like the only option when I was younger. That's all that was in stores. That's all I ever saw on celebrities. That's all I knew was low-rise jeans. I didn't know there was another option, and I always thought that my problems with low-rise jeans were just my problems with jeans. Like I thought it was just like, oh, I hate these because of course the problems with low-rise jeans are when you sit down, you know, it falls way too low in the back and you kind of can expose some stuff, and things like kind of squeezing you weird when you sit down, things like that. When really that was just the problem with low-rise jeans specifically. It wasn't until high-waisted jeans became trendy in the late 2010s, is that when that happened? I don't know. It wasn't until high-waisted jeans became more of a thing that I realized I like those so much better and they work so much better for me. Even though getting high-waisted jeans into my wardrobe has created a whole bunch of new like fit problems for me, I do find them way more comfortable. You know, you can bend over without having to worry about flashing someone something. They don't quite like dig into your lower stomach as weird when you sit down. I think they're more flattering for my body shape. They make my legs look longer, and when you're short, that's a priority. So that's why I like paying attention to trends, is because it introduces me to things that I didn't even know existed or had never really seen before. Especially if you're trying to find your style, or if you're young and you're just getting into fashion, it is really helpful to pay attention to trends and see what there is and isn't, because sometimes you're only presented with one option and then you don't even consider the fact that others could exist. So that's why I personally like trends, is all those factors I just listed, but especially because I think it can help you grow your own style, to kind of look at what's coming out and see if there's anything you might be interested in, because you don't have to follow every specific trend. You can just pick out the ones that you like or that you think you could work into your wardrobe, or things that you just want to try. So that moves me into my next section of this video, is just how to use trends without following them to a T, because I think that's the problem a lot of people have, is they're like, this is trendy, like this is the Bible, I need to follow the trend book, I need to look exactly like this, when that's really not the case, and people who do have really good personal style don't use trends like that. So like I just mentioned, with trends, when the trend report, or when you're looking through trends that come out each year or each season, what I do is I'll just Google like, you know, winter 2022 fashion trends, and then just look at like 5 different websites, because some of them will have the same trends and some will have slightly different ones. So I like to look at a bunch of different sites, whatever comes up on Google, and look at their lists of trends. I look up specific color trends. That's a good way to do it. If you already follow places like Vogue, and if you follow a lot of designers, you'll probably just see the trends anyway. But it's nice to look it up and have a list. At least for me, I like lists. So I like to see, these are the things that are trendy right now. And then I look at those things and I decide which things I want to actually try out or participate in, and which things I think are just not for me. Because that happens sometimes. You'll see something that's trendy and you'll hate it. Like for me, low-rise jeans are trendy right now, and I've already said I hate low-rise jeans. Like, I don't like the way they look on me, I don't like the way they fit, they feel uncomfortable on me. Like, I hate low-rise jeans, so I don't care if those are trendy. I'm not participating in that. I'm gonna continue to buy high-rise things because that's just what I like wearing. Whereas when I saw like the checkerboard trend and that kind of swirled more modern take on it, I was like, That's interesting. I want to try that. Like, even if it doesn't become a permanent staple of my wardrobe, which with how on trend it is, it might look super dated in another 2 years, but I'm like, for now, I want to try it because I think it looks really cool. I think it's a really interesting take that I've never seen before, so I want to try that out. And that's really what you need to do with trends, is look at what's trendy, look at the things that maybe you already have in your wardrobe that could fit into trends, or if there's something that looks really interesting to you and you want to try it, then go for that too. Maybe buy, like, thrift a piece or buy something that's like a little bit cheaper. Like, you don't want to get super expensive with things that you aren't sure you're gonna like, or things that are too trendy and you do think it'll be kind of a shorter in and out of your wardrobe time. And that's another thing with trends, is don't be afraid to integrate them with stuff you already have in your wardrobe. You don't need to have a head to toe on trend current pieces. You don't need to have that literal of a look. You can definitely just take 1 or 2 trendy pieces and integrate them with what you already have. And that's how you get that good individual looking style, is when you're using pieces you already have and you're not just buying whatever happens to be in the store that time. And do take into account what you do and don't like already in terms of fashion. See if there's a way you can take a trend and kind of twist it or alter it into being something that you already know you would like wearing. And again, don't be afraid to thrift and get stuff secondhand if it is something that's trendier and something that is very referential to past fashion decades. Like, you can definitely get some really cool vintage pieces that you can integrate into a modern wardrobe, and people will always ask you where you got it, and they'll think you look so stylish because it's in, but it's not the same thing everyone's seeing in Forever 21 and Zara. Like, it's slightly different, but it's still trendy, and people will think it's really expensive or think you got it somewhere really niche when really you just, like, you know, went to the thrift store. Like, I think that's a really cool way to kind of use trends and use the fact that things are on a 20-year cycle and they are very referential. It's really cool to be able to go find stuff from the past that you can update to the current, and you can even save some money that way too. I hope those tips helped. I might do like a little trend review at the beginning of every season if I'm gonna keep doing YouTube, just to like go over what there is and how you can use it differently, because I think it is kind of hard to fully grasp without examples if it's not something you're already used to doing. So let me know in the comments if you do want more information on how to use trends. So that's all I really had to talk about. In conclusion, like, I know there's a lot of hate on the trend cycle lately, and there are some negative aspects, mostly micro trends, but I don't think trends are all bad. As long as you don't follow them religiously and use trends as like a do or die kind of thing, like, you can use trends in very sparing ways, very meaningful ways, to make it more individual to you and to make it not wasteful and highly consumerist, like, which is the main problem with trends these days. And that's also why everyone on Instagram, all the influencers, look the same. They're all just being exactly on trend and following whatever is current right now, buying exactly what's in the stores. Like with the House of Sunny dress, everyone bought that, so everyone looked the same. You know, there's only so many ways you can style a dress. If you really want to stand out and have really good individual style, you can just pick and choose trends and use them in a way that works for you and not follow them all to a T. And I think as long as you avoid doing that, you'll avoid a lot of the problems with trends. I hope this video was interesting and or helpful. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts on trends are. If you hate the trend cycle, if you, like me, think it's pretty helpful actually. I always like to hear other people's opinions. Thanks for watching and have a great day.